Hello,
and welcome to the Film Ireland podcast. I'm Gemma Creagh, and I'm here with Alan Maher, who is the producer of Song of Granite, this fantastic film that's coming out very, very soon. Where did Song of Granite come from? When did you come on board with this?
It was first presented to myself and Andrew Meehan, who used to be head of development at the Irish Film Board. Oh, jeez, how many years? 7 years ago, I suppose. Pat May, you think that's right, maybe. And that was when I'd worked with Pat when I was at the Irish Film Board. The execs were across individual projects, so. There's a number of, like, Simon would be across projects, Emma would be across projects, and I'd be across projects. So we tended to all to get into sort of a rhythm of the people we'd work with. So if you work with them once, you tend to work with them again. And I tended to be across all of Pat's films. First of all, because he was doing documentaries, and I was across all the documentary work. And then when he did Silence with Philip King and Tina Moran, that naturally, that was in my wheelhouse. So I was across that too. So we built a kind of a good working relationship in that way, and I really loved his work, and I thought, he's making exceptional work, which had been supported by the film board from before I joined, and subsequently it's still supported. And then when I left the film board, I thought it would be probably an unusual project for me to be involved. First of all, I don't have any real interest in the, Irish traditional music. It wouldn't be something something I'd be overly familiar with. It's certainly not the type of music I would listen to. And I didn't know Joe Heaney, and I didn't, and the Irish language again isn't. I don't really speak Irish. My school Irish that everybody has. So it was so when Pat brought it to me when I was at Rhodes Entertainment, I think, and Pat could perhaps have a different view in this, but I think it was almost that he felt that perhaps I could bring something new to the exploitation more than anything else. I think the role was almost, once we get the film finished, can we help to kind of get it out into the world? And I think that's what Pat was looking for. So I don't think he has great collaborators. He's Owen McGillabrida, who writes with Pat, and Sharon Woolley, who writes with Pat, and they're like a really great team. So they write really well together.
And it's unusual to have like a film writing team.
Yeah,
like it's not too common. That's one of my other questions.
They've always done it. Yeah. So they've done it for years, and they did it in Silence, and they're working on more features together too. And I think they just balance everything out very well. And
because it's very minimalist in the approach as well. So obviously
it's quite close to the script. Strangely, the script was loose, but it was very well realized, and it was and certainly the Irish Film Board and everyone, all the funders who read it, really, really loved the script. Even though it was an unusual script in that there was room for archive and there was a lot of space in it, but it was very strong. So when Pat brought that, and then it did. It was on our slate for a while, and quite honestly, it took me a while to really focus on it properly. And it was when Jesse Fisk joined that we had the capacity and somebody who was really brilliant at production to come on. And then from that point on, we just got stuck in. So we're on it for a few years, and we shot some camera tests, and Tina Moran had organised camera tests and some shooting down, and then once we kind of got in and we brought Amy Rowan on to start casting it, and we brought Canada in, it really started to get going.
I'd say that was a difficult job because there was a lot of boxes to be ticked. So so especially with child actor Gail Gore, a set of pipes on him. Like I'd say that ruled it down massively.
Well, the casting was really, it was really good fun, and I think Pat knew Mihal, who plays the sort of middle Joe very well, and he knew him from the singing he'd done, so he sort of brought him on, and Amy did the casting on MacDowell and Colm, and Colm was a fine. Amy found him and had known about him, but Colm Shoiga had appeared on the Late Late Show he's been on before, and he's done all these various singing competitions. But I mean, the casting was, there was good fun actually when we were putting it all together, and Pat was working with the actors. I mean, it was certainly one of the most enjoyable parts of the process when he was going out and figuring it out. But yeah, Colin was exceptional. It was my kind of big regret on all of that, even though Pat knew what he wanted and was very sure and has a great eye, was that the closing was quite difficult. The closing of the finance with all the different moving parts and some of the challenges that were being presented by the change from the tax incentive to being a tax credit that hadn't really been fully thought through, I don't think, or whether they are now, it's another question. So that was very, very challenging, and the closing was much tougher than it should have been. So it kind of took I just had to concentrate and basically just finding money to pay everyone, because and some of the others weren't, like the film board were fantastic, the Irish Film Board, because they sort of understood the challenges that were being presented and understood that they weren't wasn't fault of the producer. I mean, it certainly isn't. I mean, any challenges of the tax credit have nothing to do with individual producers and everything to do with other choices that were made pretty early on with the tax credit. And it was just difficult. And I think that was a real challenge, as it is for I think it's going to be for any film that's not, hasn't got the ability to deep pockets to cash flow.
Which would be most, I'd say. A lot of them,
Well, who knows? The actual creative process went very well, and with our great location manager and Jesse and I have to. I mean, we have Richard Kendrick, and I mean, when people see the film, Richard Kendrick, who's the DP, did such an amazing job and was so amazing, and Andrew O'Reilly was focus puller, and they did a fantastic job, and we Pat with what was in a way his regular team, and John Bob Brennan, which was his sound mixer, and Tiger Sullivan, his editor. He really did bring together a fantastic team who did an amazing job, and we had a great AD team and locations we were blessed with, and Padraig Neal and Louise Stanton, the production design, Louise did the costumes, just were also incredible as well. I mean,
they were different eras as well, the style.
We built an island essentially, like it was uninhabitable, and then it was like it was the most remarkable thing. Again, all of these things presented challenges because we weren't, the approach we sort of thought we were going to have at the beginning wasn't really the approach the film ended up taking. It had a bigger scale to it than we were sort of prepared for. But you learn from these things, and I suppose that the production team, including myself, we kept all that tiny and really small, and everything else expanded around us, which was challenging in that we were really stretched and overstretched, and Jess and Roisin Geraghty and Rachel Barry, if she was working with us, were just amazing, but just also overworked. And at the same time, with the closing, it was a challenging few weeks because we all had different perspectives. And Evelyn McLaughlin as well, who was our production accountant, really kind of was there to at every step to kind of help us through it. But it was challenging, but it was it was good. And then all that, everything just came together from those points. But the actual shoot was very, very pleasant. I mean, everyone had a very good time, and Pat did a great job directing. So outside of everything, the kind of what was going on around it, the actual shoot was really well protected and run and really nicely, handled by everybody. And we had a top quality crew, and I don't think we could have gotten through without that, and the people at the helm and Pat at the helm sort of inspiring everyone all the way through it, which was great, really.
And I'd say it's hard to find locations for something like that as well, especially when you have different eras to cover. And
Kieran was finding locations for us. I think the main one was the island, because that took care of a lot, because it meant that we could shoot a lot in one location. Because otherwise there was, would you do exteriors in those, the first shots that are in the 20s and 30s, or do you would you do you have multiple locations to kind of achieve the same thing? Whereas we did have for that first week, we did have one key location, which was challenging and had, take Currachs out and there was health and safety, and we had divers, and we had everything around that. But it did help in that way. And then the other locations kind of came together, and there's a lot around Galway. And somewhere in Dublin.
What was the pub? Did I recognise the
Red
pub?
Gravediggers. No,
the Gravediggers.
Yeah,
I'm thinking. Yeah, it looked familiar to me.
That's where the main the big
sing along
section.
Yeah.
So that was, but Philip King, who is very well known for Other Voices and his radio show and South Wind Blows, his name of his company, and Tina Moran, they were brilliant in bringing together all those musicians and sort of really getting the right team together to kind of make that feel as authentic as it was. And that again was like, a lot of times Pat said, I want to shoot it this way. And we're like, no, it's not going to work, Pat, no way. And maybe we'll have a few pints. No, they can't drink. But like Pat sort of kind of got his own way. And again, with himself and Richard, he was like, I want this to be shot in a certain way, which is amazing because the Song of Granite isn't just, with everything that's going on, I think it might be easy to miss one of the things I love most about it, which is the different styles of documentary filmmaking, even though it's not a documentary, but that there's Robert Flaherty influences in the beginning, and then you get into more verite style, and whether it's Wiseman's or or the Mills' brothers, and then you get into the more 80s style sort of doc. So it's I thought that was really smart and clever, and certainly I think that scene in the pub is electrifying. I feel, and it was really really brilliantly handled by Tina and Philip and Jess and Roisin, who all kind of put that together well.
And then I was going to ask you earlier. You mentioned about the writing process. Would you be involved much with the dramas? You were in documentaries, but would you be involved much with the shaping of the script up to a certain point?
It depends on who you're. I mean, it sort of depends on you respect. I mean, what I learned from mistakes I made in Element, when I was quite inexperienced, was you sort of have to respect whatever different approach writers take to delivering material, and some writers very much respond to sitting down and working things out step by step and generating ideas and is really feeding into it. We're working with Andrew Legg on something at the moment, and Andrew really responds to you feedback, and you're there, and he asks questions. He's really curious. He's like, "Was this working?" or "What do you think?" And he's really quite brilliant in that way. Whereas Mark O'Halloran possibly less so. I mean, he definitely responds well to notes and is very open. But he had he will go off and he will do what he's like. He will just get there and he will deliver it. But he needs to really feel it, to experience it, to every word matters to him and is truthful, and he works so hard. So by the time Mark delivers a draft, it's already gone through. It's almost like it's the fifth draft, even though he's calling it the first draft, because he's done so much work on it. And so it depends. And certainly with even though Mark's very open, and he works quite closely with directors on material that less so. So it depends on who you are. And we're working with Ciarán Foy on a project that we've been working on for a while. That and Ciarán would respond very well. I mean, we worked together, even with the work we did on Citadel. At the early parts of it, we'd be very collaborative with each other because we both kind of knew what we wanted to do. I mean, it was all Ciarán, but there was certain ideas which you could kind of bounce off. So I enjoyed that, but it depends on who you're working with. But yeah, we don't like it's. And I think sometimes genre material and that is important to get quite involved in it, but not to the stage where you're doing it by committee or. We don't make those sort of films. I don't think those films really work outside the studio system. So
then I was going to say, is there ever a point where you have to step in an edit and make some hard choices or anything like that? Would you?
It's somebody was asking this the other day. I mean, it was one of those things that because we haven't got about the exploitation or anything of a film yet. But if you're making an art house film, the truth is that the director is what European festivals and European sales agents and some European distributors respond to. The director is key, and so you can't piss off the director. I mean, there's nobody has, and it's one of those things when people go, well, why would I work with a film board? They have approval over the rough cut, and like I'm like, oh, I don't want any interference, any creative interference. You're like, well, you know, the truth is that there's no value in your film if the director's walked off and isn't involved anymore, because you don't really have anything. You have a film, sure, but if you don't have somebody there to back the film, or to be at those festivals, or to pick up those awards, or to talk about the film, or to do Q&A sessions, or even when, you know, films have been distributed, or to do the interviews, you don't really have anything. You can't. It'd be like, you know, watching the Florida Project and going, well, Sean Baker has disowned this film. He's not being involved in it. That won't really work. Or Greta Gerwig with Lady Bird, if she's suddenly like going, well, I hated this film, it's taken away from me. It just doesn't work at that scale. I mean, it can work on Ant-Man, you know, if Edgar Wright walks off, then you can still have something in it. But so the edit is as collaborative as anything else. But yeah, certainly there is going to be heated discussions, and there should be. I mean, there should be, because people are going to disagree, and it's how you find your way out of that. And again, finding ways to work with directors. And there are times when I can be quite open, quite confrontational, I suppose, or quite straightforward. Straightforward is the nicer way of saying confrontational. Some people respond to that, some people don't. But you learn as you're going along. And there is, in every edit, I think there's a panicky stage. There's like that stage where you go, oh, what is this going to be? Like, this is not what I want it to be. Yeah,
there's the stage where here's what is in the script, but then something could be better as well. And then it's to look at it with the fresh eyes, and
or this just isn't working, and you just can go, oh my God, this is like, and then find your way through it, I think, or the editor and the director find their way through it. But it can be challenging, and I think, I mean, there's only a couple of, I mean, at the film board I would get quite involved. There's 2 films, I think, that were just sort of disastrous, and that doesn't help either, because it's not a very helpful attitude to have. But you just sort of despair as to what can be done to make the film palatable. And I suppose everyone, I mean, I think you've got to always be aware that no matter who's dealing with a film, it's somebody somewhere has championed your film to get it financed. And I think there's a responsibility on the part of the filmmakers to ensure that you respect and make sure that person is well served by that decision they made. I mean, on Song of Granite, we had Keith Potter from the Irish Film Board. He was just amazing, and is an executive producer in any true sense. If he's not a producer, that should be his credit, because he was just amazing. And again, Keith really backed our project and stood up for our project and believed in our project. And I felt we owed it to Keith in a way to make something he could be proud of and feel that justified all his hard work. And I think that's always important to remember. I think somebody somewhere has really not put their neck in the line, but maybe put their neck in the line for your film. You know, people are, and whoever is involved, Tisha Carr, I'm very involved in our film as well, and BAI and in telefilm, and you just gotta listen to as much as you can while backing the director. I mean, but yeah.
And it seems to have been received very well.
Oh, so we're really
good
happy.
Reviews.
Yeah, no, we're really. I think it's really sort of almost exceeded expectations for us. We've been really, really happy. I mean, it was a bit tricky at the start. We made a few calls on where the film would premiere, and when South by Southwest offered, it wasn't that and I'm sure Janet Pearson and Jim Kilmar know very well would attest to this. It was the only choice we had to make, because it wasn't in competition. So we're like, okay, well, it's in this other section, beats per minute. So will that work? And is it going to be enough platform? And Janet was very honest with me about it. And then we just made a call on it, and it was a really good call. And then when we got to Austin, we realized, we got loads of great support from South by. They were amazing, and the festival itself is fantastic, and the quality of films is really high. And we were really
super
thrilled.
Cool. Like, it's a cool festival.
But it's just whether we would fit in, and because we're not cool. So it was in
a sense, cool. it's a music video, alternative musical. Yeah, exactly. So it has its edge.
And that did
it's
work.
Different.
Yeah, and eventually, and then we got an IndieWire review, with our PR guy organised it, and it was great, and that worked. And then Fionnuala Halligan, Screen Daily gave us a really great review as well, and from that it then Oscilloscope picked it up, and from that point forward it gathered some momentum. But it was all important where it was a nerve-wracking sort of decision to make, and I think when that seemed to pay off, we were really happy, and from that point on it seemed to gain some traction. But you never know. I mean, there's the big terror. I mean, the terrifying thing is nothing could happen, and we were sort of really wanted to premiere in the US, I think, because the film was partly set there, and we thought that would make sense, and it really did turn out to be really good for us. And then we could come to Galway after that, and we did Colovi Vary, which is fantastic in between, and other festivals, and we've done a lot of festivals now. And then build up from there, and London, and where else were we recently? And then we've just released the film. Oh yeah, so it's our second weekend is higher than our first in the States. That's good. So word of mouth is actually building in the States, even though the box office figures are low, but we're only playing on one screen in New York and Film Forum, but the results are really good and very encouraging. So the word of mouth is getting better. So we're kind of building. We've built week by week, but now we're just going to then hope that we have a brilliant distributor called Oscilloscope, so they'll just roll it out. But generally, the reviews have been really, really good. We've only got a couple of people who I think didn't really get it. We won a hilariously bad review, which was just. I hate to say, but it was just kind of wrong. It was like. Everything it was saying was like, no, that wasn't the intention. No, you didn't read that right. So that was, but mostly it's been favourable. Not everyone will like it though, but that's okay. But Pat will say that as well.
It's not everyone likes most things. That's fine. There's always people that hate something.
But the people who do I think people will love it. And I think you always want to, director called Alan Brennan once said, you always want to make somebody's favourite film. So it's better to make somebody to love a film one has been involved with than just make a whole bunch of so-so things that nobody will really respond to.
And then I have another question. Drama trade?
Oh, trade.
Is it? Drama trade.
It's called trade.
Okay. Why do I? Okay, I put my inverted commas in the wrong place. Drama trade. Yes.
Well, trade is a working title. It's a script we've been developing with Mark O'Halloran based on his stage play Trade. So we've been developing for 4 years now, and we are hopeful that we're going to production next year with Peter Mackie Burns directing. Peter directed Daphne, which is a really, really great film that was released a couple of months ago, and was actually in South by Southwest, same time as us.
Excellent.
After premiering at Rotterdam, so we're casting that now. Well, the main parts, and that's with the BFI and the Film Board and the Bureau in the UK, or our co-producers I mentioned before, Tristan Gallagher, and the Bureau did Lean on Pete and Daphne Valentina produced there, and 45 Years, Weekend, and the Bureau is a company that stretches back many years, so they're really quite awesome. So yeah, we're financing and putting that together. It's as it's the usual sort of challenges, but it's a really great project, and certainly it's something I really love. And I'm very grateful to Mark. I just left the Film Board, and Mark sat down with me and said he had this script and and this play that he wanted to do, and he just sent it to me. So it was a great, really kind of real loyalty, and it was very nice. And Mark's brilliant to work with. He's just amazing. He's really is a genius. And but it's challenging work, and anything that's really truthful. But I think it's in its own way, it'll be. I think it can break some new ground.
What's it about?
It is about a man, his early 50s, who is really going through a very, very acute crisis in his life, which has been, brought on partly by the death of his father, and we find him when he is celebrating the month's mind of his father. He's been dead a month, and he begins a relationship with a young male prostitute. He's a married man, and we see how this impacts on his life and his mental health and all sorts of other things over the course of 5 days. So it's really quite powerful stuff. It's very, very, very honest, like searingly honest.
Most anything Mark, anything I've ever watched of his, I always kind of can feel it when you leave the cinema. You're like, oh, that was. And I think actually what I just said is pretty much, if anyone's seen the play, that would, apart from the 5 days thing, but the rest of it is pretty much contained in a way in the play. So, but we have expanded it out to more than that. It's but the writing is really beautiful. And it isn't a coming out story. It's something else really. But I think it touches on a lot of things at the moment, including kind of there's no real. I mean, like, it's not designed to be an issue driven film, you know. But it's more just about really really going very deep into it, and it feels unique to us. So and I think I think it should play very well. And Peter Mackie-Burns is great, and he's been really brilliant. He's been on it now, 6 months or so, and he's been fantastic and really brought something really fresh to the material. So that's that one. Yeah. And one of many that are coming up.
We've got like a few. And development, narrative, we don't have that many in development, but we've got, we still got docs that are ongoing at a number of docs at any one time.
That's it. With docs, do you kind of have to wait for your final arc to happen? Is
That's
it that you kind of have to
question.
sit around until your final arc eventually
we've just
happens,
gone through
good
that.
or bad?
The film we've just finished, we've just sort of gone through that and asked the question. But sometimes it presents itself, I think that it's you can, but sometimes that's never going to happen. Sometimes the film is about something else. One of all the films I was across when I was at the film board, the film I really love is Colony, which Morgan Bush produced with MacDara Kelleher and Ross MacDonald and Carter Gunn directed. And I think that film, some people may have struggled with it, which I think is...
Oh, it was really funny. It was surprisingly hilarious.
Yeah, it is funny. But also it's not about... That wasn't really... Like, if there was a climax to that, it would have been a false climax. Oh, everything's solved. Everything's great.
The bees are
It
back.
was that person's fault. But it wasn't. It was about the impact of this particular... of colony collapse disorder at that time on a particular... family, which was a colony in itself, a queen bee, and you kind of have to, and that to me made it a much better film. That to me is a piece of, like, it's a fantastic, slice of Americana. It's got like such insight into what's happening, and
they're
that's
great
what I loved
characters.
About it. Yeah. I think it's so amazing, and I think that is, and I think the film we've just finished with Tom Burke, I feel is the same quality to it. It's about something else. Not just what is overtly the issue, but what's underneath the issue and how it impacts individuals. Because my last thing on docs is that we don't. I don't know if this is, but I'm kind of agnostic a lot of the times, if I can say that. There's not many who necessarily want to make docs that have a particular subjectivity to them or a subject, like there's an issue that I think it's really about the director and the storytelling and the vision and the approach. And also having an objectivity. So if something happens in the course of a doc, you have to accept that. And sometimes somebody you thought was good turns out to be somebody bad. Somebody bad turns out to be somebody good. And you should be open to that. Yeah, I don't think it's, you can be a, I think that if you've made up your mind before you've made the doc, I think that's not a good thing, and it can result in quite boring documentaries. And I think documentaries can take you into unusual places, like Icarus takes you to somewhere very, very strange, and that's brilliant. You know, I think that is, and obviously everybody wants to make docs like that, and we'll see. We've got one coming down the road, which I think is going to be very surprising, but that's one we definitely have to keep under our hats.
No. So just before we go, when can we see A Song of Granite?
Okay, that's good. It's released on December 8th in the Cinemax in Bantry, the IMC in Galway, the Irish Film Institute, Lighthouse Cinema in Smithfield, Mayo Movie World, Omniplex in Cork, the Queen's Film Theatre in Belfast, the Eye in Galway, and the W Cinema in Westport. And then on the 15th of December, it expands to the UK, where Globe at Glasgow Film Theatre, and so far we'll have more venues to be confirmed over the next couple of weeks, and the ICA in London. So there you go, and there will be Q&As over that weekend on Friday the 8th and Saturday 9th in Dublin. 8th is in the I5, 9th is in the Lighthouse, and then in the Galway Eye on Sunday 10th, and delighted to know that will be with Pat Collins, not me, so you'll have somebody with real insight into the film, and hopefully maybe Owen will go, who's brilliant as well. So it's but Pat is very, very articulate and entertaining and passionate, so you would well worth having the opportunity to go to one of those and interact with Pat there. And I mean, some people do have questions to ask, and Pat will give you very strong answers, and you talk about Joe Heaney a lot more as well. And we may have some other things planned for those, but certainly it's worth seeing, and it is definitely a film to be seen on the big screen.
Yes, stunning.
It is it's pure cinema, but we're very proud of it, and I'm very proud that we got to be involved, and it was an amazing team, I have to say. So
if you like stunning visuals, if you like beautiful music, and if you want to give yourself an early Christmas present, go catch this film. Thanks a million for chatting to us.
Thanks, Gemma.
Excellent.